Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us again on another edition, another week of Viewpoint on DBS television. Like you all know, especially to our faithful televiewers, it is a talk show program that is divided into two parts: the yes or no and answer questions, and of course the debate. Talking of this edition tonight, we are having our guest with us. It is not a new face. You must have met him one or two times. He is Mr. Galim Derek, teacher, and probably maybe he will be telling us how schools have resumed for examination classes. And we do have Mange Venashus with us, your regular man on the show. That said, good evening to you, Sir Galim, and thank you very much for honoring our invitation again.
Good evening, Vanessa, and thank you for always thinking of me when it comes to this show.
All right, so maybe you would tell us, just brief us a little bit about how school has resumed in your school.
Schools have resumed, finally. I know everyone was so skeptical about it. No one believed it was going to happen, because if we looked at the kind of statistics our government gave us, no one would have thought anyone would have the courage to send the child to school or even to see the child off to school. But from the venue, I'll tell you, I left the classroom before coming here, and it was full.
And it was full.
Yeah.
Mange Venashus, good evening and welcome.
Good evening, Vanessa, and good evening to our viewers. It's the beginning of another week.
It's the beginning of another week. Let us have a transition. I will be taking the first part of the show. Yes or no, what are you in for? Let us go for the first question immediately. In relation to the death of Samuel Wazizi, is government's communique convincing? I begin with you, Sir Derry.
It is not at all.
It is not. So, no. Venashus, what do you say about that?
I think it is. It is, yes.
It is convincing. Question 2. From this other polemic case concerning Wazizi, is official information coordinated in Cameroon? To you, sir?
No.
No, it's not coordinated. Mange Venashus.
I share the same opinion. It is not, Vanessa.
It is not. And our last question: with the rising number of coronavirus cases, is the consumption of normal life, is the resumption, better still, of normal life in Cameroon a wise decision? To you, sir?
It is not.
It is not a wise decision. Mange Venashus?
I think it is.
It is.
Yes.
Let us come back for the debate. Once more, welcome. You are watching Viewpoint on DBS television every day from Monday to Friday, 7 p.m. In our first question, we asked whether in relation to the death of Samuel Wazizi, is government's communique convincing? Sir Derek, you and I, we know that the communique came in after a private TV station announced to the public that the said journalist has died. But then the circumstances in that communique, we are asking ourselves, what is convincing enough? And you don't think that government's communique is convincing about it?
Certainly, certainly. I'm not convinced it is convincing, right? And I like to work with history. Normally in rhetoric is the art of convincing speaking. When you talk about someone you are listening to, you think about, or who is communicating to you, you think about the person's credibility. How honest, how truthful is the person? You think about the logic in what the person says. Are his statistics convincing? Is he convinced even about what he is saying? And to go straight to that question, permit me to bring in just this little story. A preacher on the first Sunday, when he decides to end the service, he introduces to his congregation. He tells them, next Sunday my sermon will be on lying, right? And he tells them everyone should read the Gospel of Mark chapter 17. And he closes them. When he comes back the next or the following Sunday, he takes to the pulpit and he asks them, please, could I see by hand show the number of persons who read Mark chapter 17? And you won't believe me, it was a congregation of fingers that went up. And he looked at them and he told them, the Gospel of Mark has just 16 chapters. I want to bring a number of things here. First, the speaker, he was conscious of what he said. He knows what he said wasn't true, right? But what distinguishes him from the kind of communication or spokespersons of our government we have today is the purpose of his communication. His audience was there. The audience, let's take the audience for our Cameroonian citizens. And then the message. There is always a message once there is a communication between a speaker and the audience. But our difference here is, what is the purpose of the communication, right? The message is there. But the word I underlined there is lying, right? That is distorting information with a deliberate intent to deceive the audience.
The audience.
Right? And I would say the lying here is pathetic, right? Pathetic because it has some evil intent. Permit me to go down history. Let me take you down to the persons we have called our spokespersons or our communication bosses in this country. I take you back to Augustine Concha, right? Back in April 9th, 1991, with the popular phrase, it has become his alias, Zero More, right? When he stood in front of corpses and told the Cameroonian audience nobody died. Everyone knows how we Cameroonians felt about it. And the same man, as communication minister over the 1994 World Cup scandal, where the country pleaded that they were unable to sponsor the team in the US. And since Cameroonians were passionate enough, they needed to see their country replay what happened in 1990 with Italy. And they contributed money, from our poor grandmothers to truck pushers, taxi drivers. Everyone anxiously contributed money, just for this money to be mismanaged, and then after that, permit me to say, embezzled.
All right. So let us bring it down now to and relate it to the Samuel Wazizi's case.
I'm coming.
All right.
I said I would like to go down history before I conclude.
All right.
And he tells us that the money disappeared in a plane between Paris and New York. The money that was contributed in Cameroon, what did it go to do in Paris? And the same man with the SDF launching, right, where 6 people were shot dead, and he told the world that they were trampled on by other members who were present for the launching. Issa Shiruma Bakari, which you know, or whom you know so well, is not different. When he became Minister of Communication, he told us that he promises to keep to the code of ethics, right? And look at the first thing that happens there. He tells us that in 2010, the journalist Bibi Ngota, who died in Konenge prison, we know it was out of torture, but he told us that he had HIV/AIDS at an advanced state before even he got to die, and that he was not tortured. 2017 was not the same. It was not different. He said the situation in Northwest and Southwest is already under control, whereas people were being murdered. The last man we have in front of us, Rene Emmanuel Sadi, he is not different. With the Ngarbu case, he tells the world that it was a fire outbreak. How can it be a fire outbreak and no corpses are burnt?
All right, Mr. Ngalim, let us boil down to the point because we're working on time.
I am on it now.
Yes.
If the people who are supposed to communicate to us with the death of Samuel Wazizi, if history has proven that since 1990, they have always given us distorted information till the present day we are talking, are we going to believe information that the same people are giving us, which is already contradictory in itself? The information says now he died in the military hospital, right? That is what the military are saying, and that the family was informed well beforehand. And his brother, Henry Ngemo, he has just, on a video, he says his family has never been contacted. They rather are the ones who tried to reach Yaoundé, and no one listened to them.
With several court sessions that were held without his presence.
Without his presence. Whereas allegedly he was already dead about 10 months ago.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Ngalim, for taking us back memory lane through history according to events that have been happening that are of similar cases. Mange Venashus, I wonder, because you rather think that government's communique is convincing. Just looking at what Mr. Ngalim just brought down, a rundown sheet of happenings, are you still accepting that, yes, government report is convincing?
Vanessa, it is a fact. It happened, and we just take it the way it is. I say just because when Mr. Ngalim was discussing the characteristics of a good discourse, there is one thing that he forgot to mention, the authority of the speaker. It has something to do with what constitutes a good discourse, that it gives authenticity to that information. I think that Wazizi died in, within the hands of the Cameroon government. He was arrested in Boya, as the information says, and subsequently transferred to Yaoundé, and he died. All that matters now is Wazizi is no more. He died. He died in Yaoundé. And if it is the authority in Yaoundé, with that authoritative stand to give us that he has died, and to give us that he died practically 2 weeks after, and to tell us that he died of some advanced state of sepsis, I think it is authoritative enough, because it comes from him.
Answer the question, had it been a TV station did not release that information, why is that the government took it so long, almost 1 year, to actually report about his death?
Reporting about his death, when we read the communication of the Ministry of Defense, it ends with the clause that the family was informed and they did not take any step. I think that the state had a relation to do with the corpse they had at hand and the family concerned.
How true is it that the family was informed?
Because that is the question
even his lawyers said they were not informed.
That is the question of how true it is now. And we were saying that what makes a discourse authentic is the authority of the person. One of the characteristics is the authority of the person who is talking. Because if I stand here now and I talk as a journalist, I'm talking about journalism, my authority as a journalism counts. But if I stand here and I talk about finance, economy, I am wanting. I may not be as apt as an economist, as apt as a banker. But then the authority of the Ministry of Defense, remember they say it was the military that took him, transferred him from Monya to Boya, Yaoundé, and it is the Ministry of Defense that gives the information. I think it is authoritative, and we have to accept, because we have no other option. We have no other plan B or the second information to rely on. So what we have at hand is what we should count on.
It's what we should count on. Mr. Ngalim, are you actually supporting the fact?
I don't agree with
that
him.
That is because it is an authority, or the authority of the person that delivered the information, that no, we should accept that is convincing.
You would not come and ask for evidence from the person who committed the crime. What do you expect him to tell you? Do you expect him to accept he committed the crime? But what we know is it's a crime. It's against human rights. One, he was arrested and kept without any information. And for what crime? Allegations, right? And they claim they informed the family, right? The brother says it's a lie. We were never informed about anything. We were never contacted by anyone. Right?
All right, Mr. Saderic, let us go to the second question. From this other polemic case concerning Wazizi, is official information coordinated in Cameroon? We are talking from this order. We heard of the Ngabu incident where reports were coming till the final reports that came out from the investigation committee. So we are asking, whether is information actually coordinated in Cameroon? You don't think it's coordinated?
I said it's not coordinated, right? When I started, I talked about the logos. As far as convincing is concerned, here we count so much on statistics, right? And when we go to statistics, it becomes clear enough, because as far as the Ngabu incident is concerned, you would agree with me that there were lots of conflicts about the statistics of what happened. First, the information itself was inaccurate, especially on the part of government's communication. One, they said 5 persons died from an outbreak of a fire incident. Maybe they call it a crossfire with guns. Maybe the burns would have resulted from a crossfire, but still I come back to the fact that I don't see how 5 persons would die from a fire and nobody is burnt. And the statistics they are giving, they later on conflict with what independent investigations came out with. We have gotten figures 5 from the government side, 23 from independent investigations, some say 25, right?
Yeah.
If there was coordination, such conflict will not arise. It comes back to the same thing like the Iseka train accident. You all know the government claimed 75 or 76, around that. But the final investigations are pushing a number close to 400. So who are we supposed to believe? The same people who distort information for us, or the journalists themselves who do the investigations before they will sit up to do something? And then finally, you see the French ambassador, right, Christophe Giroux. He told us after getting conflicting information, which means he himself is aware of the fact that there is lack of coordination as far as information is concerned. And he says he talked with the President of the Republic on the 5th of this month, and that they're launching an independent investigation. I guess we're about to experience another outcome from a distorted information like it has always been the cases before.
Right. Could we link it to the number of cases of coronavirus in Cameroon? Is that possible? Yeah,
that is certainly true, because there are even conflicts when you look at the Archbishop has his own figures, right? And his own figures are not as exaggerated as the ones the government is presenting. We have had cases where Lakentini will give its own figures. If they say 40, the final figure we receive when the information goes on transit from Lakentini to Yaoundé becomes 400.
400.
So it comes back to the same thing. It comes
back that information is not coordinated. Amangevenashu, so you are of the opinion that information as well in Cameroon is not coordinated. What makes you think so?
That's a fact in relation to, when we have to tie it down in relation to Samuel Wazizi's case. We tend to find out how coordinated the government is actually. Because when you look at it...
How uncoordinated?
It's still the same thing. It's still the same thing. Because when the government is going ahead, when we talk of Cameroon government, it is the party that stands or that's opposing the government. When you take the case of Samuel Wazizi, you see that information says tomorrow, Tuesday, there is supposed to be a court case in Boya between Samuel Wazizi and the government of Cameroon. And the court case, tomorrow will be the 3rd time that they are having the hearing. And for the first 2 times, the lawyers of Samuel Wazizi had introduced the habeas corpus to have him released on that bail. And the government refused. Now the worry that you see how uncoordinated the government is when the lawyers who sit in for that case, they go ahead judging a case of a dead person. What caused the Ministry of Defense to inform the High Court or the court in Boya that this man is no longer alive? Why should we go talking about a case of somebody, and if they go and sit and they finally decide that Wazizi should be released, who would they release when he had died? So when I look at this case, I was saying that information is actually uncoordinated because government is government. There is no government for Ministry of Defense, government for the Ministry of Justice, government for the Ministry of Communication. No, Cameroon government is one. And what shows the cohesion? I remember when Chief Dr. Dion Ngute came to power, he called for that cohesion within the government team, asked them to work as a team. When you see the Ministry of Defense going ahead with their own activities, declaring that Wazizi died right in August, while the Ministry of Defense is ahead defending, is having court sessions of a person who had died, I think that is high time that the two ministries would have coordinated, would have interchanged information to inform the Ministry of Justice that this court session holding in Boya has no place again because the man is no longer alive. In that case, we will see one government. But when we see government in terms of ministries, I think it is a kind of loophole in the management of government affairs in this country, Vanessa.
All right, thank you. Mr. Ngali, let us take our last question for today. With the rising number of coronavirus cases, is the resumption of normal life in Cameroon a wise decision? You don't think so? The first question I asked myself is, has activities normally even stopped in Cameroon? But when we talk of live resumption to normal, schools, what have been going on normally, just schools and churches or mosques that have been closed, and you don't think that it is a wise decision?
Definitely, I was going to begin from the point where I would have asked you the question whether there was a stop in the functioning of Cameroon at all, apart from stopping children from going to school and churches. Every other thing continued as if nothing happened. What is the reason for stopping a child from going to school and then you meet the child in an overcrowded market, even more crowded than the school environment itself? So I would say no activity actually stopped in Cameroon. Things continued normally. And the question now I would ask is there concern for the citizens of this country? Because the statistics, they keep skyrocketing every day. Right? And it would have been a moment for a wise government to say, in order to reduce the risk of
contamination,
mass death in our country, this was the right time to work from these statistics, which are skyrocketing every day, to see how we can manage the situation and keep the rate of contamination right down there. But unfortunately, talking of resumption, it is not even a question of now. From the day BAS started functioning in Cameroon, I think resumption had started, even though it's ironical to say that a government would order the resumption of BAS almost a month before the resumption of schools. Where are the priorities? So, to me, nothing as far as this COVID management is concerned has been done positive.
So apparently life has been normal.
It has been a normal life.
And I'll turn to you and I ask you, activities in Cameroon, had it stopped before? And you think rather that it is wise or it is normal for life to come back to Cameroon?
Yes, I say it is a wise decision for the resumption of normal life. When we mean normal life, Vanessa, you know the fear that came with coronavirus in March, precisely in Cameroon, because before then, January, we started hearing of coronavirus in the Western world, and when it finally came to Cameroon in March, you know, that fright, that fear that came with coronavirus is gradually dying down. Cameroonians are coming to terms with the fact that coronavirus is not something that would be a matter of weeks. We will be living with coronavirus hence. So rather than locking down, in fact, Mr. Ngalim cited churches and schools that were and mosques that were locked down. You know, some activities were actually reduced because we have some companies that went into, laying off of workers. Reduction, the workforce was reduced in order to manage with the present situation. But then, coronavirus is not an illness, it's not an epidemic that will just come for 2-3 weeks, 1 month, and go away. We're already in the 3rd month since it started in Cameroon. Although we are talking of rising numbers already, the sensitization that we need to do, I think that is the matter. That's what matters here. We need to sensitize Cameroonians. We have been talking about preventive measures. This is just one of the ways that we have to live with now, because there is no way we are going to. Nobody has the agenda for coronavirus to say that coronavirus ends next month. We may live in this situation for 2-3 years. Look at HIV/AIDS. When it started, no one knew when it was going to end. Even till today, we are still talking of AIDS. Look at when hepatitis B started. No one has the agenda. Today, we are still talking about it. What is happening is we just need to adapt how we behave, how we relate with the virus, because it's already part and parcel of us. If we keep on confining schools, confining churches and mosques and other activities, I think that we may do that indefinitely. So the best thing is, let us, talk more on how we can let our people know ways by which we can live with the
virus.
Yes, with the virus. Use of face mask, hand sanitizers, and all this. In this way, we would be able to, cope up with life. Because as of now, if the trend of life that we adopted from the 18th of March, if that should continue, I don't think we will not die of coronavirus. We will die of hunger. We will die of hunger. So, in order that the economies should come back to what it was, let us accept that we are living with coronavirus, just like this, like cholera, just like any other airborne disease, just like any other waterborne disease that we live with, and we just know that these are precautions that we have to take. If we take those precautions, I think we can live with coronavirus, because there is no way we can avoid it. It is not in anybody's power to decide whether we can avoid it or not, Vanessa.
All right. Thank you very much for your points, Mange Venatius. We're actually working on time. So one last word to our viewers watching us today.
Just simply to tell us that the coronavirus has come to stay. We would be living with face mask for a number of periods that we don't know how long.
Uncountable years.
So the earlier we start becoming used to wearing our face mask, the better for us in the prevention, in fighting this pandemic in Africa, in Cameroon, Vanessa.
All right. So Derek, an advice to your students, because surely from here you actually meet your students tomorrow again.
Definitely.
An advice to them.
I will be meeting them, and what I will tell them is they should uphold the truth.
They should uphold
the truth. Because our society definitely is suffering from the lie pandemic. So I'll advise them to stand for the truth, because that's the only thing that can save us and them from a precarious future.
Right. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Pastor.
And to you also, Mange Venatius, ladies and gentlemen, thank you also for being our faithful televiewers of Viewpoint on DBS TV. Do take care. Do not forget to respect the various barrier measures to fight against COVID-19. Until we meet again, do have a blessed week. Start in the company of programs on DBS Television.